Hey guys, I hope you are doing great and leading well during this time of crisis and this pandemic that we've all encountered the last few months. And we don't know how long this is going to last, this way of life that we're living right now. But for right now, it's our reality. And a lot of people have, encountered some really challenging times. And I think as leaders, there's a lot of new information every single day that's thrown at us, right? We have to get told this new information, and then how are we going to act based on that information? How are we going to make decisions that are in the best interest of everybody? And I think as leaders, it can be discouraging at times when going through a situation like this. Hey, I don't know all the right answers, right? And so last night I was actually just in bed and I was listening to music, and I kind of some things that came to my mind were, what are some questions that I think leaders should be asking right now? And these just kind of came to mind. I started typing it in my notes on my phone because it just kind of some thoughts were brewing. And so I wanted to share with you that I hope these will encourage you. But here, I wanted to share four questions that I think every leader should be asking themselves right now. So here's the four questions. I hope they encourage you and challenge you maybe to think about your situation and your leadership. So the first question I think you should ask yourself is this: what do I need to accelerate in my life due to the virus, due to the pandemic, right? What is something that I need to change, or maybe to accelerate? I need to put down the gas pedal. I need to say, okay, I've been wanting to do this certain thing for months, years, decades, I don't know. But this virus has changed things so rapidly. What do I need to accelerate in my life and make changes in that area? I think about my own business as a speaker. I'm used to traveling across the country, speaking at different organizations in person, right? That's like what has been within my comfort zone. That's what I've always done. And so right now, as you know, 99.9% of the country is not having events in person. They're not having conferences to get their employees together. That's just not happening. And so, the first time when this first started and someone asked, hey, will you speak virtually? I was like, what in the world is that even, right? I'd done a few things on Zoom, but other than that, it was all in person. And so what's interesting though, is through all of this, the last 2 months, I've actually now done more virtual events, like working with teams over Zoom and speaking to groups, even with hundreds of people that are zoomed in, I guess you'd call it. I think I've done more events than I would have done in person in the same span of time. So it's crazy that through this uncertainty of, wow, what does it even look like to give a talk virtually? Now I'm doing more. And so the question for your business is, or your team or your leadership is, where do you need to accelerate? Where do you need to focus some energy towards something where you can look at it and say, wow, like I've really been wanting to transition, virtually, or I've been wanting to pivot for a long time, but I'm like, oh, I'll get to it someday. I think a lot of us are learning that right now is the time. And so that first question is this: what needs to accelerate in my life? In what area do I need to put down the gas pedal and say, hey, I'm going to pursue this area because now is the time, right? Now is the time to pivot and pursue that. So what does that look like for you? Number two, the second question that I think you should ask yourself during this time is this: do my daily actions align with my long-term vision? Do my daily habits align with my long-term vision? And I think when we look at the vision for our lives, we first have to, this is kind of how we look at it is, or how I would look at it and how I've been kind of taught to look at it is this: when you look out into the sky, when you look out into the sky, you usually use a telescope, right? You look out in that telescope, you can see all the different, you see the stars. We had a bonfire at our house the other night with just a few people, and you could, it was very clear. You could see a lot of things. And so, I think of your vision as looking out into the future and seeing, okay, this is where I'm headed, right? This is my final destination, where if I could script out my life to a certain extent, these are the types of things that I want to accomplish. This is the type of person I want to become, right? And then once you've defined that destination, then you essentially work backwards from that. And then you say, okay, here's where I want to go. And then now, what are the action steps? Now, what are the things that I need to do to get there, right? And so I think we have to first define, where am I headed? Because in a crisis, in a pandemic, it's easy to lose sight of, man, why am I even doing this thing, right? Like, this is, whatever it is for you, this is different. It feels weird. So find that destination and then work backwards from that destination. Do your actions align with that vision? Or are you just taking this time, taking it off for 2 months, and then you're going to look back and say, man, I really wish I would have been more intentional about that time. Think about all the pro athletes right now who are literally sitting at home. I can guarantee you one thing, they're not just sitting at home, right? They might be off, but they're Zooming with their coaches, their trainers, they're finding a way to get reps. The same should go for us in our leadership, whatever that looks like. Don't take this time off, right? Make sure that your actions are aligning with your long-term vision of the type of person you want to become. So number 3, and this is a challenging one, this question: how can I serve others around me most effectively? How can I serve those around me most effectively? And I think this is tough because right now, during a time when most people are locked down, I've struggled with this. Most people are in their homes. How do I effectively serve those around me? How do I make a difference when most people are at home right now? And now we're seeing kind of a transition back in a lot of states, but some still aren't. And so what does that look like to practically serve other people? And something that I've had to come to is a kind of a question that I've thought about that's kind of convicted me is, am I serving those around me to the best of my ability? So my family, my wife, my friends, the people who I've seen, I've been around, am I even leading, and am I serving them to the best of my ability? Because I think we sometimes think, oh man, I need to go serve at a homeless shelter right now, or I need to go give food at the food bank. I need to do all these things. And those are great things. I'm just saying it would kind of be, insensitive maybe for some people right now that maybe can't get out of their homes to say, you need to be at the food bank, right? And so my point is, serving others during a pandemic is going to look different for all of us. For you, it's going to probably look different for me. But just an encouragement and a reminder is that people will remember, how they were treated during a pandemic, right? During a crisis, things kind of just come to the surface. And I think even though we may not be going out and maybe literally handing out food at the food bank, maybe you are, and that's awesome. But what does it look like practically to serve where you are with the people closest to you, right? And if you become so busy with loving and serving and caring for the people around you, it's easier to forget about all the noise and the distractions that we face in the world and on the news, every single day when we see a new update, more cases. I think when we find a way to serve those people the closest to us, because sometimes a lot of people, they neglect those, right? They become a public success and then a private failure, a failure at home, and they treat the people that are closest to them the worst. And I think, that's just a charge to everyone who's a leader. Are you serving the people within your sphere of influence the best, just like you would if you met a stranger in that way? So number 4, the last question I think you should ask, and I think this is very, very helpful, a good application to end this, is what are my recent wins? What are my recent wins? And here's what I mean. I think a lot of people, we look at successful people, whatever industry you're in, you look at the person who's successful, that makes a lot of money, or that started a business that made millions of dollars, or you look at a professional athlete or a mentor in your life and you're like, wow, like that person, I want to take whatever magic pill they took to get there, right? And any of those people who made it or whatever, they would tell you there's no magic pill, right? Unless you win the lottery or something crazy, there's not really a magic pill. And what it is, those people who have had success, it's these small wins over and over and over again, maybe months, years, decades, I don't know, a long time, that they've had these small wins that then add up over time. So then at the end, we look at them and say, wow, that's unbelievable what they've accomplished. And I think the same goes for us. We can look at these last few months of quarantine and things like that and say, man, life is different right now. It's tough. But what are some practical small wins that you can, I encourage you, just write them down. Write down today, what are 3 wins you've had during this time? And I know it might be challenging. You might have to think about it. But I think when you have those small wins, those add up, and you say, okay, I went to the gym this morning, so because I did that, well, hey, I can accomplish any challenge I'm going to face at work today, right? And then I can, I think a lot of our life carries over, and it's a trickle effect, and it's a ripple effect, really, and it ripples into all the other areas of our life. And so, a final encouragement to you is, what are some small wins that we can find that we've had, so that when we look back on this time, we can say, you know what, I actually made the best of it. It was not how I planned it. Like this financial year, this season was not in any way how I scripted it, right? We were all on pace to have the best year ever. And then this year happened, and this pandemic happened. But despite all that, I approached each day with a positive attitude. I kind of tried to work as hard as I could to make the best of the situation. And then when I look back, I can say, oh, here's some wins from that, because those little wins add up. And so those are 4 questions that I think we should all be asking as leaders. And I think if you ask yourself those questions and get honest about the answers and say, okay, here, maybe write them down, I think you will see some progress. And I think those questions might help even calm some anxiety that you have about what's going on in our world right now. So I hope you guys continue to lead well with everything going on in the world. I hope you're doing great. Have an awesome day, and keep doing your thing and keep making a difference. Thank you, guys.